Hey everyone, and welcome to Business Boutique. I'm Christy Wright, and today we are talking about how to be content where you are while still chasing big dreams. Now, I'm so excited about this because this is a reality of the life that we live, right? Like, we want to be content where we are today, but still chase big dreams and go for big goals and strive for something newer or better. Now, I want to start by just reminding you how I got started speaking. Now, you may have seen me at our Business Boutique events or even some bigger stages like Catalyst or, some large stages across the country at conferences. But let me just remind you, it was not that long ago that I was speaking on stages that looked very, very different. I have spoken at high school cafeterias. I have spoken at family reunions. I kid you not. I have spoken at strip malls and libraries and banks. I spoke at a college one time that was seated for 1,000 people. And 3 students showed up. And it turns out, by the way, those 3 students only showed up because they got extra credit. I have spoken at Kentucky County Libraries on a Friday night doing a financial presentation. What sounds more fun than a financial presentation on Friday night at a Kentucky County Library? I know, it's a real party. I have spoken at a bank one time where they had this conference, this big conference, and it was seated for hundreds of people. And 2 people came, and one talked on her cell phone, not texted, talked out loud while I was speaking, and the other one fell asleep, I kid you not, and snored out loud. Y'all, I could not make this up. I have stories for days. Now, if you were an aspiring speaker, an aspiring professional speaker like I was at the time, then you might get discouraged speaking in these types of scenarios, right? You might get discouraged speaking to an audience that is literally ignoring you. I get that. I have been there, done that, got the t-shirt. In fact, you might even be there right now. You might be feeling discouraged in your business because it's not as big or impressive or flashy or successful as you thought it would be right now. You're not, making the waves you thought you would make. You're not getting the followers you thought you would get. Let's say you published your first blog and only one person read it, and it turns out it was your sweet mama being supportive. Or you did your first Facebook Live and only 5 people tuned in and they were all your friends. Or maybe you put yourself out there and it just didn't have the fireworks and excitement and success that you hoped and dreamed of. I get that. I understand that because I promise you, I have been there. But I want to encourage you today about this whole issue of getting started, this whole issue of starting small and these small beginnings and these unimpressive starts that we have. There is something sacred in the seasons. There is something sacred in each of the different seasons that we go through. And I believe that there is training in the trenches. And I mean that. There is training that is happening in you, in the trenches, when you're going through the valley, when you're on those stages in front of the family reunion or at the Kentucky County Library, or when you're writing that first blog that your mom read. There's something happening in you in that season, in those trenches, that can't happen any other way. See, I believe that God is doing something in you right now, right exactly where you are, that cannot happen any other way. So, instead of wishing away your life, instead of always wishing and wanting and trying and striving for something more, the next big break, the next big success, the next revenue level, the next income level, the next Facebook follower number to hit, instead of that, instead of always looking to the next, I want to encourage you and challenge you to find contentment in the now. Now, let's go ahead and acknowledge something. That's hard. It's hard to be content right now, right where you are, especially when I know that you want more. And this is true in business and in life. I know you want more. More money, more time, more flexibility, more freedom, more success, more impact, more of everything. I do too. I totally get that. But being content does not mean giving up on your goals. Being content does not mean not being goal-oriented. Being content does not mean halfway doing something. See, here's the thing. It's both and. It's being content right where you are and still striving for where you're going. See, it's being thankful and grateful for what you have today while still working really hard for something more. It's showing up for your 200 Instagram followers while still wanting to turn that in to 200,000. It's both. But here's the thing. See, if you're not faithful with where you are and what you have today, God can't trust you with more. If you're not grateful for what you've already been given, God's not going to give you more to be ungrateful for. See, we're not talking about a situation issue. We're not talking about a success issue. We're talking about a heart issue. And I know that that's hard, but that's why I'm so excited to talk about this today, because this is something that we can all work on, myself included. So let's talk about how to do that. Let's talk about how to be content right where you are today and be grateful for what you have today while still striving for something more. I'm going to give you 3 ways, and they're super tactical. They're super practical, but I promise you, I use these every single day to practice this and play this out in my own life. Okay, number 1. This is huge. This is huge, especially if you're wired like me, where your mind can kind of wander. The first way is to control your thoughts. Now, I know this is hard, especially if you have a vivid imagination like I tend to have. And I know it's also hard with social media. You're scrolling Instagram. It's so easy to get sucked into the comparison trap. You're just minding your own business, you're enjoying your life, and the next thing you know, you're scrolling along and you see that your friend has brand new granite countertops and a perfectly clean house. Sure she does, right? And then you're scrolling along and you see, oh my gosh, your coworker just went on another European vacation. And then you're scrolling along and you see your distant cousin has this perfect family photo with perfect kids, with perfect smiles, and they all just behave perfectly for pictures. Now, meanwhile, of course, your countertops are old and moldy and tile. You haven't been on a vacation in years, and your kids are currently smearing peanut butter and jelly all over your wall from the lunch that they just halfway ate. That's reality, right? We feel that. We compare someone else's highlight reel to our current reality, and that is a recipe for discouragement. It's a recipe for resentment. So the way that you combat this is to control your thoughts. I love how the Bible says, take every thought and hold it captive to Christ. Every thought. Now, that's a big ask. That's a big challenge. But if we realize our thoughts can get away with us so easily, and when we get sucked into the black hole of comparison and social media, they can take on a whole new life of their own. Before you know it, you are enjoying your life 1 minute, and 20 minutes later of Instagram scrolling, you hate your life, you hate your countertops, you hate your kids, and you hate the fact that you haven't been on a vacation. All that occurred was comparison crept in. So instead, the way to combat that is to control your thoughts. See, when you feel that discontentment creeping in, and it really does creep in very, very sneakily, very gradually, instead, stop your thoughts in their tracks and instead focus on what you are grateful for. Which brings me to number 2. The second way to be content where you are while still striving for bigger things is to focus on what you have. Focus on what you already have right now today. Now, when you look at what you have, y'all, it is so easy to be grateful. Do you know, this is so interesting to me. The average American complains 80 times a day. 80 times a day. Are you kidding me? We live in the greatest country in the world with more money and resources and technology than any other generation in history. And we still somehow find ourselves complaining 80 times a day. What in the world do we have to complain about? And by the way, for a little perspective, if your household income is over $30,000 per year, you are in the richest top 1% of income earners in the world. Focus on what you have. Focus on what you already have today. You and I, we have more than most people. Focus on what you have instead of what you don't have, and you will find it so much easier to be content. So the first way that you find contentment where you are while still chasing big dreams is to control your thoughts. The second way is to focus on what you have and be grateful for that. And the third way is to write it down. There is something so powerful about writing things down. See, when you write down the things that you're grateful for and even the dreams that you're aiming for, y'all, they hold so much power. They take on a life of their own. They are now out of the battlefield of your mind and they are in the real world, tangible on paper. You know, many of you may have heard me talk about how every single Christmas I write a letter. So I'm not great about journaling all the time consistently, but every Christmas when we pack up our Christmas decorations to put them away in the attic for the next year, I will write down a letter that just summarizes everything that happened that year. I write down the highs, the lows, the prayers that were answered, and especially the prayers and hopes and dreams I have for the next year. And I do this every single year. And then, of course, the next year, when we get all of our ornaments down to decorate, we open up the letter from the year before. And y'all, it is so amazing and often pretty funny to read my thoughts from the year before. How much can change in an entire year? I remember my Christmas letter from 2006 said, I kid you not, "Dear God, please let me go on at least one date next year." Yeah, bless my heart. Apparently that was a tough year in the love department. I also remember the year in 2014 when I pulled the Christmas ornaments out and sat down to read my letter from the year before. Both my husband and I separately in our letters, which we don't read them together till the next year, separately wrote about praying to start to have a family. And I sat there holding the letter over my giant belly when I was pregnant with our first son, Carter, that was going to be born in January of the next year. It's incredible to see your words on the page. It's incredible to see everything that you're grateful for and everything you're hoping and praying for. It is a chronicle of God's faithfulness. Now, whether you do it at Christmas or all year long, whether it's a letter or a journal, it doesn't matter. I want you to write it down. I want you to write down what you are grateful for. When you do this, you are trusting God with where you are today and where you hope you'll be tomorrow. And I promise you, He can handle both. Control your thoughts. Focus on what you have already and write it down. I think that when you do that, you will find that chasing big dreams not only becomes easier, it also becomes a lot more fulfilling along the way. Our first caller is calling in from Knoxville, where I went to college. Aubrey, how can I help?
Hi. I first want to say that I'm like a huge fan.
Oh, thanks, Aubrey. Thanks for calling.
Podcast and on my way to work and on my way from work. But my call is, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of ideas. I listened to everything you had to say. I really was in depth on the fear factor you were talking about the other day on your podcast. And I have fear of failure. I want to get out there. I believe the ideas that I do have would be successful, but I don't know where to start, and I'm afraid to get put down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Well, first of all, let me just tell you, Aubrey, that is so normal. In fact, that's why I talk about fear so much through Business Boutique, whether it's on the podcast or on stage, because this is something that everyone experiences. It doesn't matter how long you've been in business, you still will have fear when you put yourself out there, when you push the boundaries, when you push yourself outside of your comfort zone. But let's go back to the exciting stuff really quickly. Let's not talk about fear for just a second. Let's talk about your ideas. Do you want to share a few of them? Because I'd love to hear what you're kind of working with to start with.
Well, I kind of have a bunch, as you normally do, and I wrote everything down, and I want to start like a boutique business. I would like to first start out namely advertising on social media and to, like craft places and stuff like that sells handmade goods. I would like to start doing something with that. And then later on in life, I've set a goal to open up an actual business at an actual location.
Okay. So you're thinking starting out, but all of your ideas, are they all clothes? Are they all boutique related?
Yes.
Okay, well, cool. Well, here's what I would encourage you to do, Aubrey, and this is what I tell people to do all the time. When you're starting out, it's easy to have these big dreams of I'm going to have a storefront boutique and it's going to be in downtown and we're going to serve tea and cookies and it's going to be so fantastic. And then we get really excited about this big idea, but then fear creeps in because that idea is big and we don't know how we're going to do it. And we don't have the money for a boutique storefront and all the excitement kind of drains out and we just get overwhelmed with fear and questions. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take your big dream idea of a boutique in the future and back out of that and figure out what is the babyest version. I don't even know if babyest is a word, Aubrey, but I'm making it up, okay? What is the smallest baby version of this idea that you could start with? Maybe It just means you start selling the clothes that you're going to make on Facebook. Maybe it means you sell them on Etsy, or you create a small little website template and you work with that. So you can start your idea, this business of selling handmade clothes. You can start your online boutique tomorrow in a very beginner version. And why I like starting small is because it creates two things. Number one, it creates validation for your idea. You will generate demand, you will begin to generate sales and money that then funds the business. And so the business starts operating in itself. It starts to generate revenue, and you start to get customers and word of mouth marketing. And the whole thing starts to become this machine that really is actually running. So that's important for the business. It needs to have its money coming in to fund you creating more clothes and all that good stuff. The customers need to hear about you. They need to come and learn who you are and what you're doing. So that's really important for the business to get started. But it's also important for you because, Aubrey, I'll tell you, nothing is more validating for your idea than someone paying you their hard-earned money. When you get that first sale, when you get that first dollar, your shoulders will go back, your head will be held higher, and you will realize, oh my gosh, I can do this. I have my first customer, and then I have my second customer, and so on. So two things happen when you get started. The business starts going and growing, which is good for your customers, good for the money, but also your confidence starts growing. And when those two things start happening, I promise you it gets easier and easier because the confidence is there, the money is there, and your customers are there. So I just want you to take your idea of online clothing or clothing boutique, whatever that is, and boil it down to a baby version. And maybe it's not online. Maybe it's not on Facebook. Maybe you want to set up your shop as the 1.0 version at a craft fair. That'd be fine. Or in little, you go to your friends' houses and do little boutique trunk shows. You can do it a lot of different ways. But I just want to remind you, Aubrey, the iPhone started with an iPhone 1. You start somewhere. Everyone starts somewhere. So just give yourself permission to be a beginner. And then I promise you, if you fall, because you will, because we all do, it doesn't hurt as much.
Right.
Because you're a beginner and you're starting really small. You're not betting the whole farm on this big downtown boutique where it feels like the failure and the cost is so much greater. So I just want to encourage you to figure out what your baby version is, the lowest hanging fruit, the quickest win. Figure out what that is and do that. And when you do that, it's amazing because that growth will happen organically over time. You'll get smarter, the customers will grow, the money will grow, and then over time, maybe in a couple years, you look up and you are downtown running your dream boutique, but it didn't happen overnight. It happened over time. This is such a great question, and people ask me this all the time. They have a big dream. They want to start an app, or they want a retail storefront, or they want something that is going to be a national brand that's going to change lives all over the country, and I think that's awesome. I think you can do that. I think you should do that. But I just want to remind you that even though it may not be as impressive to start small, it's smarter to start small for you and for the marketplace. If your idea is new, you got to prove it. It takes more than just building the thing. I want you to start small, prove the idea, validate the idea, go after the customers, and over time, as you build it, then sure, they'll come over time. But in the process of building it, here's what's so important. Just like I told Aubrey, you're building demand, you're building revenue, and you're building confidence in yourself. And y'all, that confidence, that's worth more than anything because that's what's going to help you face those fears. Deal with the setbacks, fall downs, failures. We've all got them, but you got to have the demand, you got to have the revenue, and you've got to have the confidence to not only go for it, but to stick with it. Great question, Aubrey. I hope that helps. Hey everyone, and welcome to Business Boutique. I'm Christy Wright, and I'm so excited because today I get to share another awesome conversation with you that I had with one of my very best friends, Rachael Cruz. Rachael Cruz is the New York Times bestselling author of the books Smart Money, Smart Kids and Love Your Life, Not Theirs. She's also the host of The Rachael Cruz Show, and she is just a whole lot of fun. Check out this conversation with Rachael. Hey everyone, and welcome to Business Boutique. I'm Christy Wright, and I'm so excited because I get to hang out with my good friend, one of my good friends in real life.
Yes.
Rachael Cruz.
I'm here. Yes. Thanks for having me.
We have desks beside each other. We're real friends in real life, but now we are kind of on this official set pretending to be, legit and professional.
We're being professional.
We're so fancy. But I'm so excited to have you here because we are going to be talking about contentment. And we've been talking about this in this whole show, and I know it's something for you that is really core to everything you teach about money.
Yes.
It's core to everything about living a life that really gives you the foundation you need to have great money habits. So let's just start with talking about contentment in general. Like, why do you think that's important? Why is it so foundational for you?
Sure. Well, when it comes to your money, I've learned that people that are content, they win financially, because people who are content can save money. People who are content, they will sacrifice their lifestyle to get out of debt. People who are content live their lives with an open hand and they give more. Yeah. It's just contentment allows you to be at peace. Your heart is really at peace with where you are, because stuff is not going to make you happy. Yeah. Stuff can be fun. You can buy some fun stuff. It's great. You can enjoy it. But it's never going to fulfill you. And I think we live in a culture and a world where we run like a rat in a wheel, thinking that the next thing's gonna make me happy. Oh, okay. And when you just finally stop and, surrender to that race, and you're like, you know what? If I can just be content, which means I, again, am at peace with where I am right now, where God has me this season of life, man, I can enjoy it so much more.
Yeah. It's so interesting too, because I feel like that we know this intellectually. Like, we talk about this, like contentment. Yeah, that's important. It's certainly a godly quality. God calls us to be content, but then it's hard.
Yes.
Like, it's really hard. And even if I'm content, right now, then after this shoot, I go out to my car and, I'm just sitting there before I take off and I'm scrolling Instagram and someone has a perfect new kitchen and their kids are perfect and their outfit's perfect and they're going on a European vacation. I'm like, oh, my life is the worst.
I'm so
it's like,
boring.
Just like that. Like that.
I know.
Your whole attitude and perspective changes from content to discontent. So let's talk about, what are some of the barriers to contentment? What are some of these things that are temptations we slip into, or just kind of the enemies of contentment that we're facing in a real practical way every single day?
Yeah, well, I think you have to understand first and foremost what contentment is. So contentment, it is not apathy.
Right.
It is not laziness.
It's not giving up.
It's not complacency.
Right.
I mean, you can still be striving. There still can be movement in your life and being content.
Yeah.
But I think it's when you start to envy or be jealous of others, that cycle starts to really play out. Yeah. And social media, we've talked about it a lot, but it's true. It is. It's one of the, it's not, I don't want to blame social media on everything, but I think it is the vehicle that takes us down this road of discontentment and comparisons. And so it's really, really difficult, and you just have to be aware. You really do. I think it's the easiest place to slip in. And I realize that you don't compare your life usually to people that are out of your league, if that makes sense. Yeah. So people that are, maybe you have a successful business and there's someone just starting out, like, you're so much more inept to be like, oh yeah, good job, you go girl. But it's someone that's on your playing field where you start to be like, oh, the comparison starts to seep in, right? And so that's what you really have to watch out for. It's almost that peer-to-peer level is where the comparison is so real. And so really just saying, you know what, I've got to quit the comparisons. I have to stop this. And I've kind of figured out this formula that allows you not only to quit the comparisons, but is really this roadmap to contentment. And it's starting with gratitude, which leads to humility, which then breeds contentment. So it's a process.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about those 3 stages, because I've heard you talk about this before. I've heard you talk about this at church, and even talk about this on stage with Dave. I want to talk about each of those 3 stages and kind of what that means. So let's start with the first one.
Yeah, so gratitude, starting there, learning to be grateful, which again, can be so hard in our world today because you see what everyone else has, what everyone else is experiencing, and what you're lacking. And so truly learning to be grateful for what you have. And I started this thing. It's actually it was a study was done, and it proved science.
Oh, I'm ready for this. Let's have
it. Science,
I love
it works. I was like, I started this before I even knew there was a study out about it. But I started this thing of the gratitude list on my phone. And so I just write down 2 things I'm grateful for every morning. And because I was in this bad habit of going to email and social media before I even got out of bed. And so I realized, I have to start my day with being grateful. And the study came out that showed the neurocircuits of your brain or whatever all of it is. People that start their days with gratitude not only have a more joyful day, but inevitably a more fulfilling life.
Wow.
And I was like, man, it's so true. Gratitude is huge. And so I think really starting and looking at yourself And it could be big things you're grateful for, right? Health, success of a business, like where you are financially. I mean, it could be the big things, but it also can be the small things. Like I wrote down one morning, I'm like, I'm thankful for hot coffee.
Yeah, that's
like how terrible is cold coffee?
Some people don't have it. Some people don't have it.
That's right. But I'm like, man, just to go, I do Keurig.
Yeah,
that's right. To put the little cup in, and I get coffee right there. Like, oh my gosh. So
and you enjoy the coffee more because you're grateful for it, right? Like you're like, oh my gosh, you don't feel entitled to the coffee. You're like, I'm grateful for this thing.
Totally. So learning to be grateful. And again, it sounds a little Pollyanna, but I feel like people that are grateful that you talk to, they're more enjoyable people.
Absolutely. They're more likable. Yes. Okay, let's talk about gratitude as a choice, not a feeling. Because I think some people think, oh, well, if I get this new job, then I'll be grateful. If my situation changes, then I'll be grateful. If such and such happens that I want, then I'll be grateful. As if gratitude is a response or gratitude is a feeling that comes and goes. But you really talk about how gratitude is a choice that you make.
Yes, a daily choice. And sometimes it's a hard choice.
That's right.
Right? Life isn't always easy. Like there's things that happen that you're like, man, some people it's really hard things.
Yeah.
But man, when you can find those little glimpses of the hope in your life, of what you're grateful for, of where God has you, it's amazing what changes. I had a lady on. You may have had her on the Business Boutique. Mignon?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Love her. We love her.
Y'all see Mignon. Yeah. I mean, she's one of those people on the top of my mind.
That's right.
I was like, oh my gosh, she is. She is so grateful for so many things.
That's right.
And again, when you're just around these people, but she had a hard life.
That's right.
And there were days that she probably did not feel grateful. I know there's days I don't feel grateful. So yeah, you're right. You can't go based on a feeling. It has to be a choice day in and day out, and it has to be consistent.
Okay, so gratitude is first. Talk us through the second stage.
So when you're able to be grateful for what you have, I almost visualize it as like you're looking down at your life. And once you're there and you're like, okay, yes, I am thankful, I am grateful, you're able to look up then, and you're able to look out, and that's really where humility comes into play. And C.S. Lewis's quote is like my all-time favorite.
I love this.
Yes, where he said, humility is not thinking less of yourself, but it's thinking of yourself less. And it's not humiliation. Like I feel like some people feel like they're humble, like when you give them a compliment, they're like, you look so pretty today. And they're like, no,
I'm the worst. I'm the ugliest.
Oh
it's
gosh,
like, no.
Like you did really good. No, I'm terrible. Like, but they feel like, oh, I'm just being humble because I don't want to brag or I don't want to, But I'm like, no, it's not humiliation. What it really is people thinking less of themselves. And it's so interesting. I'm like, the people that we've gotten to interact with, we've gotten to meet some really cool people in our job. And like some of like the people that have just like sold the most books, right? Or that are speaking to the largest audiences, your Christine Caines, your Max Licados, like these jewels of people, but they've been so successful. When you end a conversation with a lot of those people, it's so funny. I walk away and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like all they did was ask about me.
That's right.
Like they didn't sit there and talk about themselves. Like they literally were asking questions about me. And then I get self-conscious. I'm like, did I just talk about myself the whole time? Yeah. But I look back on so many of those people that I so admire. I'm like, these people are like killing it on so many levels. But yet, it's not all about them.
That's right.
It's about other people. And you just see it even in those conversations that you have with them off to the side somewhere. And so that's what I always think about. I'm like, man, people that are humble, they're just so willing not only to serve and to give, but they're just thinking about you. Like that you have a level of value that you're bringing to their life, and they appreciate it. And you just feel that weight.
I love this cycle because the more humble you are, naturally the more grateful you are because you're just grateful. You're not entitled. It's the opposite of entitlement. That's right. And the more grateful you are, the more humble you are. It's kind of like the person that comes to mind for me is Shelly Giglio. Shelly Giglio is one of those people that instead of walking in a room and going, here I am, look at me, she's like, there you are. Look at you. Everything is like, look at you. How are you doing? I remember I talked to her and she was like, how can I support you? And I was like, are you asking me that? like people that have all the success in the world that have every right to say, look at what I've done. Look at the books I've sold. Look at the impact I've made. Whatever the thing is, are the ones going, look at you. Let's celebrate you and where you are. And I think that's just regardless of your level of success, regardless of your stage of business, regardless of your amount of followers on Instagram, to be the person that goes, look at you. That makes somebody, I love it, was it Kid President that says, be somebody that makes everybody feel like somebody. You know what I mean? It's like, I want to make you look at you, you know? So I love that. Okay. So you've got these different stages. You've got the gratitude, you've got the humility, and then that is what leads to contentment. Let's talk about how that kind of works.
Yeah. So the thought with that is now once you're able to look out and see other people, you now get to look beyond that and you get to look at your future. Because again, like we said earlier, contentment is not laziness, or it's not like, oh, I'm just going to be sitting here forever and this is where I'm going to be. No, there's movement. You can still have goals. So looking at the future and say, okay, what can I do better? But when you do that on your own without gratitude and humility, that starts discontentment. It's almost the opposite of like, oh, but once you, again, achieve those 2 steps and you're like, okay, yes, I am grateful. I'm thinking about others. So now I get to think, okay, what's in the future for me? It's a natural progression that's in a healthy way versus saying, oh, I just want that over there.
Right.
I'm going to try to get it without the other 2.
Right, because I think that's going to make me happy.
That's
or
right.
I'm going to have arrived. The way I always talk about it is, it feels like the finish line always moves. Like if I could just get there, and then it's like you never get there. There's not an amount of Instagram followers you can get. There's not an amount of money that you can make. There's not a moment where you're going to go, I've made it. I don't want anything more in life. We're always kind of looking for the next. We're always goal oriented, and you want to cultivate progress, but it's not going to replace the feeling of satisfaction of just being content where you are.
Exactly.
So I love that example. And I think it's really important, especially for our business owners, to hear this, because we live in this paradox of being so goal-oriented and also needing to find contentment. And so let's talk a little bit about even someone like you, someone like me, that we're on stage, and you have to have a level of confidence to be on stage. You have to have a level of confidence to run a business. You have to have a level of confidence to go for it, go big or go home, put yourself out there for rejection in the marketplace or whatever.
Yep.
How do you balance this incredible confidence to go for it and give it all you've got? Like really put yourself out there and still stay grounded, still stay humble and content and grateful while going for big things. So it's like, it's this weird balance that we're kind of living in. And we know people that do this, and we certainly try to do it.
Sure.
But what does that look like?
Yeah, I think for me, the work you're doing, if it's self-serving, then that's where the vicious cycle begins.
Okay.
But we're on stages to help people.
Yeah.
So for me, it's almost like the work I'm doing isn't about me. Like I get to be the mouthpiece of it, but it really is. And we truly believe that here at Ramsey Solutions. We talk about all the time that we exist for the people that are not here. Like we're doing it. So I think when you're doing, whether it's a business or you're speaking, whatever it is, but it's all for you.
Yeah.
Then that's where it starts to get really messy.
Yeah.
But when you can take yourself out of it and be like, it's not for me. We have a sign at our live events, and they post it everywhere.
Yes.
And it says, "Thank you, God, for choosing me. It's a pleasure to be on the stage."
That's right.
And that's it. It's like I was, yes, given the opportunity, stepped in, worked hard, have honed my craft. But at the end of the day, it's not about me on stage. It's about that couple that I'm looking out in the audience. Do you know what I mean? Or the person that's going to pick up that book.
That's right.
So that's what keeps me, because I struggle with it. I actually talked, I feel like I'm name dropping. I really don't mean to. But Christine Kane, name dropping all these cool people we know. But seriously, I talked to her about this at dinner one night, because I was like, what is the balance of having a job that does not become your identity,
right?
But it has your heart. Like, how do you not, how do you keep that? And so we had just a great conversation around that. And I think that is true. I think those are 2 separate things. You can have the heart to do things, and your heart is for people and it's for your work, but you do have to keep your identity true and don't lose that in your business.
I think so much of it is where it comes from too, for me. Like I remember, I don't know if you remember this, a million years ago, Andy Andrews came in and coached us on speaking. Like we did this half day thing, and he came in and gave us some advice, and he said, I remember something really stuck out to me from that day where he said, when you walk on stage, he said, you should be thinking about what you can give. Not what you can get.
Yes.
And what he meant was, how can I give value, give solutions, help people change their lives, make a difference, inspire, educate, whatever, not how can I get laughs, how can I get a standing ovation, how can I get raving reviews. And the speakers that walk on the stage that are totally focused on them and what can I get and how cute do I look and look at my slides and me and all that I've done and I want to get a standing ovation, you feel it in the audience, you feel it.
Oh yeah.
But those that walk on the stage completely focused on what they can give, those are the ones ironically that get the standing ovation because they were so focused on what they could give. And I think it's true in business. Don't focus on what you can get. The money, the followers, the success.
Right.
Focus on what you can give to the marketplace and you'll get all that success and more.
And something we do helpful around our place here is we have a persona, and it helps me so much. So we took a survey basically figuring out who's my audience, who's your customer, figure out who is your typical customer, and paint them out, get a picture of who you think they are, what's their age, what's their demographic, what's
get
their
to know them.
Get to know them. And so mine's Emily. We named her Emily.
I love it.
But we think every content everything is okay. What's Emily getting out of this? Emily, and we keep thinking about her, and so that helps the perspective where it's not I'm building this big business just to show everyone how great I am. No. It's not about you. It's about Emily.
That's right.
Figure out who your Emily is, and when she's your target, I think that helps the perspective as well.
That's so good. And if you really do have that heart check of where is this coming from? You know what I mean? Is it coming from because it's going to make me look good or make me look smart?
Right.
Then that's not the right place.
Totally.
But is this going to help Emily in this example, then that's great. You know, it's ironic because I feel the same way, back to where we were talking about kind of the enemies of contentment. I feel like it's the same for me. If I'm unhappy with the way that I look and I want to work out because I want to be healthier, because I just want to be healthier, cool. If I liked my body one minute and didn't like it the next because I saw someone skinnier on Instagram, then that's coming from a different place. I felt good about me until I saw her. And so the why behind it matters so much.
Your motivation.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so one of the things that I love that you teach about contentment is you make it really practical. It's not just like this theory, like, oh, feel content, good luck, cross your fingers, you know, make this choice every day. You actually are teaching people actionable steps, and even now have a new tool to help them do that. So talk to us about like how you put this into practice. It started on your phone, but it's kind of evolved from there. So let's talk about that.
Yes. So one thing that I've learned in my life that I love so much is journaling. So journaling has been a big part. I started this at the end of high school, and I've journaled everything, like so much, so many prayers, so many fights with friends, or whatever it is. Like it all goes in these journals, and so I literally have boxes of them now. But it's so fun to look back and see how faithful God has been. I always laugh and say, like, how many doors he's opened, how many doors he's closed.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank God for unanswered prayers.
That's right. Can I get an amen?
I look back at stuff, I'm like, oh, thank you, God, you did not answer
That's
that.
right.
That
That's
would
right.
be so terrible.
That's right.
So it's just so fun to look back and reflect, and that's where a lot of my gratitude comes back from, when I go back and reread these things. So journaling was a big part, and obviously this message of contentment, like I think it's huge, not only in the money space, but for people's lives. So I'm like, okay, I want to pair the two together. Yeah. So what I came up with, is the contentment journal.
Yeah.
And so walking through kind of what we just talked about, but it's going to be 30 days of gratitude, 30 days of humility, 30 days of contentment, and it's a guided journal. So you have prompts every day for 90 days. And it's so exciting. I'm like That's really awesome. Pumped about it. And, you know, if you all create content and you do too, I'm like, I did it on a plane ride because it's much different than a book. It's much less content. There's some teaching in it, but it's way less than what a book is. And so I did it on a plane ride to and from LA. So I had 8 hours by myself on this plane, right? To and from. So I did it all. And at the end, I like hit send, like the file to go to our content team to like clean up all the crazy grammar and stuff. But I hit it and I was like, oh my gosh, I was so excited. Because I'm like, I want people to get this in their hands, because it's a practical tool, because you can go from living this dissatisfied, busy, spinning your wheels life to going through something like this journey, and being like, oh wow, at the end of it, I have so much not only to be grateful for, but so much joy in my life. And so letting those be those daily challenges of the prompts it's something fun.
One of the things I was talking about earlier is my Christmas letter, which is a very small scale of like each year, because I'm not great about journaling, but each year I'll write this letter. And the way that I describe it, as I have years and years now, these letters, is it's a chronicle of God's faithfulness. And what's so cool is now you're giving people a tool where by the end of this, it will be a chronicle of God's faithfulness. And what's so awesome is not only is this proof for your contentment, it's not like, oh, I can just grasp at straws, I'm thankful for health. It's like, look at all the things I'm thankful for. I have proof in writing, which we talk about that. It takes on a different power when you write it down. But it's also, when you face a challenge next week, you can go, God was faithful before. He will be faithful again. And I love that. And so it really is something that is going to cultivate a different level in your faith life, in addition to these very practical qualities of gratitude, humility, and contentment.
It's powerful. I heard a stat. There was a study done that said, if you have a thought, it can be gone within 30 seconds if you don't write it down.
Oh, wow.
And so there's something powerful about putting words to a paper, and you can go back, because there's so many things you forget, right? Like day to day, you're like, oh, I totally forgot that this happened and how great this was, or how kind this person was to me. You forget all that. But when you write it down and you can go back, the memories that triggers, and like you said, you just see day in and day out that God has walked you down this path. And he is good. And what your life is now, man, there can be hardships. Like I'm not saying that like your life is obviously going to be perfect. There's hard times, there's trials, hard seasons. But that's when you almost need these kind of things the most, is to go back.
It's just good too to have. It really is like having a best friend guide you through this. Like, it's so funny because you're sharing screenshots of some of the pages on social media, on Insta Story. And so I didn't want to share mine publicly, but I did text Rachel. I was like,
I knew what it was. I was like,
I texted her the response to hers from yesterday, and I was like, I'm thankful for this. So it's just so fun that it puts your heart in that zone. The way people talk about how do you hear from God and that type of thing, I'm like, sometimes it's just tuning into that radio station. And this is a tool that's going to tune you into that station of gratitude and what God is doing in your life. And I love that, because I think the fruit that's going to come of this is so much more than even you and I can realize when we're sitting here. As we wrap up, Rachel, I would love it if you would just speak to our listeners and our viewers and just share with them, what is something that you hope they gain from this gratitude contentment journal? Like, what is something that you hope, like, at the end of this, I hope that you get to feel this or experience this. Like, I think this is going to lead you down this path. Like, what are kind of your dreams for it? You know?
I look at our lives day in and day out, and for me, it seems like it's like hour blocks, right? Like, it's like you get up, you get the kids ready, you're getting breakfast, you get dressed, you go to work.
And calendars.
Yeah, you come back and it's like, oh my gosh, you're making dinner, you're giving the kids baths, one's running out of the bath naked, you're having to go put them back in. Like, it's just like, and you get done and you're just like, oh, like, okay, the day's over, you know.
I did so much, and what did I do?
I know, right? Like, it's just like, man, life can be tiring. And we're in the season of little kids now, so it's like toddlers, and you're just like, it's so physical, it's so tiring.
The nighttime routine in and of itself is exhausting. Like 7 p.m. I'm like, I'm ready for bed as well.
Literally, yes. So I know for me in my story, I'm like, I can get so caught up in that, like in those kind of rhythms, that I forget to look at my life. I forget to look at others. And man, just stop and pause and having that time. And what this does too is it forces you to have some quiet time.
Yeah, I love that.
Which is so good. Like, whether you do it in the morning, night, whenever your routine is, but having that time, even if it's 15 minutes.
That's right.
Just to pause, have quiet, and reflect.
Okay, Rachel, in addition to the contentment journal and all the other million things that you're doing between speaking and your Rachel Cruz show, now you also have a podcast. So you're on YouTube and podcast world. Tell us about it.
That's right. So I love both.
Yes.
I do love the podcast. I'm really excited about it. So we're taking the audio from the Rachel Cruz show, putting on podcasts with some more teaching and kind of commentary around it. And the fun thing about podcasts is you get to kind of just drop any whenever you want. Yeah. So the team gave me like this little recorder.
I saw this at the Smart Conference. You did this.
We did it with Megmaker. You were on mine. Yeah. So it's so fun because I'm like, okay, if I have a thought or I'm with someone cool, I just take out my little recorder and we just talk, and it can become a podcast. It's like this whole new thing. Because I've done video for so long, but it takes like a crew. It's a production. There's big editing and like all this stuff. A podcast, it's like, I don't know, it's just more of a conversation. And I
grab your little microphone out of your purse and you're ready to go.
I know. So the Rachel Cruz Show podcast, go subscribe.
Rachel, this has been so helpful, I know, for all of our listeners, regardless of their stage of business, regardless, even if they have a business. Like, contentment is just a virtue that will help us in so many areas of life. But before we wrap up, I would love it if we could close with you just maybe addressing our viewer, our listener directly, and just maybe there's a woman listening right now and she just feels discontent. Her Instagram following is not impressive. Her products are not selling, and she has this dream in her heart. And she feels like God has given her this hope and this dream and this gift and so much desire for the future, but the current reality isn't great or isn't as impressive as her friends on Instagram. So just give her some words of encouragement as we wrap up about where she is today.
Yeah, I'd say going back to kind of the gratitude piece, but man, when you can learn to be grateful for the season you're in with your business, so much happens because you start to realize, okay, this is an opportunity for me to grow. And this is an opportunity possibly for me to try some things and maybe fail, but on a small scale. And so you learn so much in these seasons. You learn so much. And so as you grow, you get to figure out, okay, what's working? And as you do that, naturally, your business will grow, your following will grow, what it is, because you're figuring out what's working, but you get to start on the scale that you're at. And you get to make some mistakes. I think that's the beautiful thing, because when you are given, or you do achieve a big platform or a big business, some mistakes can be extremely costly. They can be magnified, but you have to look at this position right now and where you're at and be like, okay, I'm here for a reason, and I get to do things now that I may not get to do when it's big, and continue to grow, continue to persevere, and you have to put the blinders on. Stop looking at what everyone else is doing and learn to be, again, that content and that peace with where you are.
I love that. I love how the Bible says, do not despise these small beginnings.
That's
and
right.
We all have small beginnings.
So good.
You and I have stories for days of the Move Conference. We'll tell you another time
Thank
about
God
how we got started speaking.
We had that summer, though, because I learned so much. You learned.
We did.
And thank God it was on that scale.
That's right.
Versus what we're doing now. Oh, so bad. Yeah.
So good. Rachel, you're so fun. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for spending some time with us and hanging out.
So great. Thanks for having me.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Business Boutique. I'm Christy Wright, and today I have a challenge for you. Now, I don't know if you struggle with this, but I struggle with this every single day. So let's just talk about it. Time. There's never any time. No time to study. I'm not going to get into Stanford. Name that show, Saved by the Bell. Any kids of the 80s, you know what I'm talking about. Y'all, time management is such a struggle, isn't it? It's like we have 24 hours in a day, but we never have enough. Not enough time to do what we want to do, not enough time to do what we need to do, and certainly not enough time to do everything that everyone else wants us to do. And then you add this whole element of social media of everyone is doing all these fun things, and then you have something creep in called FOMO, fear of missing out. You combine all these factors that we have more opportunities than ever before. We have more relationships, more good things, more responsibilities. And then we've got social media telling us we're missing out on everything. The combination is relentless in making us feel like we never have enough time. But that's why I want to give you a challenge today, because there is actually something you can do, something you can choose that will help you combat this onslaught of feeling like you're always missing out and never keeping up. It's one simple word: contentment. Contentment. When you are content where you are, here's what's so beautiful. You have the confidence to say no to a lot of those things. You have the confidence to say no to good things because you know that you're saying yes to the best things. When you're content where you are, you're not having the fear of missing out. You're having JOMO, the joy of missing out. You are excited to be where you are, doing what you're doing with who you're doing it with, even if that means you are at home in your pajamas with Ben & Jerry's on the couch. Yes, everyone's dressed up and beautiful on Instagram at that big party that you didn't go to, but you're content on your couch with your ice cream. Y'all, we can't do everything. And if we live our lives constantly trying to keep up with everyone else's demands of us and everyone else's opportunities on social media, we are going to be exhausted. And most of all, we're going to spend our life for everyone else. So instead, I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to not just find contentment in your heart, not just find contentment in other areas of your life. Find contentment in how you manage your time. Choose to spend your time only on what's most important to you. And when you're content where you are, it gives you the confidence to say no to those things that aren't right for you. It's a simple trick. It's a simple choice that can change your perspective and change everything about how you view your time and how you live your life. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you need help protecting your time like we all do, well, I've got a free resource for you. You can download my free checklist of 25 ways to protect your time by clicking the link below. We've got a call from Becca in San Bernardino, California. Becca, how are you? How can I help?
Hey, oh my gosh. You've already helped me so much. So
thanks.
Thank you for that. The month of January, I needed to hear from God. So I fasted social media because that was a big problem for me. And right when that happened, my husband said, you have to listen to this genius woman. And he listens to Dave while he's at work all day. But, I have just learned so much about the passion in growing your business. In September, we had a family emergency happen with my husband at work. He's a police officer, and we've had a big pay cut. And so I've had all of these dreams that I know God's placed in my life, but I just don't know how to fully make them to grow into a business. In the fall, we have a big piece of property that we live on, and there's a barn. And so I had a maker's market at my home, and I hosted it. About 10 women that just have small business out of their home or their Instagram, they came in person, and I had a woman speaker just for encouragement, and we had worship. It was awesome. But my big question is, how do I feel funny about charging people to come to my home, even though it's more of like a business and a marketplace, but I feel like, how do I charge them for ministry? And I understand that like churches can do this for Bible studies, and they, you pay to partake in whatever service is being offered, but I just feel awkward about it.
Yeah, that's the thing, Becca. It's funny. We all have these weird feelings around money, don't we? Like, we feel guilty charging. We feel weird talking about money. We feel weird when people give us money. Like, even if you are so confident in what you're doing, when someone actually hands you a check or cash, like you get all squirmy, you don't make eye contact. Like, it's a real thing. It's not just because you're in business. In ministry. I'll tell you that. It's a real thing in all types of business. But let's just break this down for a second, okay? When you put on this market, and you're specifically talking about the market, right? Charging for like a place in the market?
Yeah.
Okay. When you put this on, let's just talk about what kind of work goes into it. What are you doing for that?
Well, it's pretty awesome because your passion in growing a business, like one of your questions are, what are you good at? And in writing all of this down, which is going to be hard to be able to take notes when you're talking to me right now. Normally all I do is just take notes during your podcast. But what I do is I just host. I love creating environment. I love decorating. It just comes effortless to me, which was also another one of your questions. I love hosting. We host Bible studies at our house. I love people. And so I create an environment, and I get tables. I provide food, I provide services, I orchestrate all of the vendors when they come, what time. We order bathrooms because there's an old barn in the back of our property, but there's no bathroom facilities. And so that's something like a cost that goes into it. And so there is a lot of behind the scenes, but at the same time, I still just feel funny because here I need to provide an extra income for my family. And I know this is a passion of mine, just to create a space for people to come and get off social media and get be together and
right.
be and I call it my gathering and marketplace. So it's kind of like a 2-for-1.
I love it. Okay, so let's just talk about this. If you're viewing this as a ministry, then you can charge for this in multiple different ways. If you want to provide it for ladies to attend for a free service to them that they attend, then you could have it funded different ways through sponsorships or the vendors. The vendors certainly need to be charged. That's a no-brainer because they are paying to be there because they're getting to earn money from it. But I want you to think about the value you're offering. So when we think about what we're getting, we feel guilty. I'm getting money. But you said something, Becca, that I think is really interesting. You said you need to provide income for your family. That actually has nothing to do with it. Because you could be a multimillionaire, Becca, and you should still charge for this because there's value. So I don't want you to focus on what you're getting money. I want you to focus on what you're giving. You're giving value. And when you're giving value and you're creating an experience, and when you're giving solutions and a speaker and bathrooms and all the things that these ladies are coming to, that has a value to it. Now let's just take the emotions out of it. When you go to, Becca, do you like coffee? Do you ever drink coffee?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you go to Starbucks, for example, you are going to Starbucks to get a coffee, to get a latte, whatever, because you want the coffee more than you want your money. So when you give that barista $5, it's because you would rather have the coffee than your $5. She would rather have your $5 than her coffee. It is an exchange of value. And that's what business is. It's an exchange of value because you are giving something of value and people are giving you something of value. They want what you have more than what you do, and you want what they have, the money, more than what they do. So when you begin to take all the squirmy emotions out of it and you realize I'm giving value, then it takes a little bit of the pressure off. Now, I know when you view it as a ministry, there's more squirmy feelings around that. So I will tell you that what's so important to realize, and I tell women in all types of business this, it doesn't matter if you're nonprofit or for-profit, if you're in the church or in the marketplace, God is in your business because he is in you and you are in your business. Yeah. And when the Bible says, do your work as unto the Lord, that has value. Becca, there is a podcast episode I want you to listen to of the Business Boutique podcast. If you haven't listened to it, it's with Stephanie Meek. And she runs Five Daughters Bakery that has these unbelievable donuts. They are so delicious.
I listened to it.
Okay.
Yes, I just listened to it.
So you may remember where I asked her the question, how do you not feel guilty charging? You're a believer and you've got really expensive donuts. Like Becca, her donuts are crazy expensive. And she said, well, I don't see it as something where because I'm a believer, I shouldn't charge. She goes, I feel a deeper responsibility to charge, to honor this thing that God has given me, to honor and steward this thing that God has entrusted me with. And so if you flip the switch and you begin to look at it as something that you are stewarding for the kingdom, that you are going to honor even more because it does have value, that should help. I think that if you begin to work on some of that, and I will tell you it's a muscle. So if you never exercise it, that muscle's weak. The more you exercise it, the stronger that muscle will become and the easier it will become to talk about it. But it's a great question. I hear your heart. You love these women. And again, if you don't want to charge them to come, you can get sponsors. You can have other ways. You can charge more to the vendors. You can do it other ways. But regardless of who you're charging, whether it's the vendors or the attendees, just know that you are providing value and that value is worth something. It's worth someone paying for. That's such a great question.